And we're now less than 3 weeks out until the primary, and a lot could happen in that time. Let's get into that and more with this week's panel. Dave Lombardo is from the Capitol Press Room from WCNY and on public radio stations, and Joe Spector is from Politico. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So we're talking about this debate. I don't want to steal your word. We were talking before we went on air, but I did find it a little boring, not a lot of fireworks. Maybe that's good for democracy, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. Joe, what do you think the governor had to do here in this debate? This is the first time we had seen all three candidates on the stage, sharing the stage together. It had the potential for a lot of awkward and, conflicting circumstances that didn't quite happen. What did she need to do?
Well, you want to have a gaffe-free debate, nothing that garners headlines, that you made a mistake or did something that might have voters reconsider their support of her. Like you said, this is, she's still introducing herself to voters in New York, right? Yeah. I mean, she has never run, she's run for statewide office as lieutenant governor. I mean, this is her first election. She's not being reelected. Sometimes you see that in stories, governor seeking reelection. No, this is her first election as governor. And so, I think she definitely handled some of the barbs that were expected, right? I mean, they knocked her for her previous endorsement from the NRA when she was a congresswoman out in Western New York. They tried to go after her on some of the crime issues, whether or not she went further enough on bail reform. And she had answers for all of it. Brian Benjamin, right, her scandal-plagued former lieutenant governor. They tried to knock her on that, and she came forward and said, that hurt. That was a tough one, and moved on. She explained the NRA. She spun it in a way where she said, I wish more Democrats or Republicans would change their heart like I did over the last decade.
I thought that was a really good answer.
Yeah, that was really one way to spin it. And Suozzi and Jumaane Williams, they didn't really have. They took their shots, but never really landed the big punch on her.
Yeah, Dave, what do you think about Suozzi and Jumaane's performance here? I think that they did a pretty good job. I think Suozzi, in particular, did a really good job about going after her over and over and over again. I don't know how that would come through the voters, and I don't know how many voters even watched this debate, so maybe it doesn't matter in the end. But how do you think they did?
So you make two important points there. How did they do, and how are people consuming this? So how did they do? We have to think about this in terms of sports, because politics is always a sporting event for me, maybe for you too, Joe. Yeah. And Suozzi and Jumaane Williams come into this debate way behind and time running out on the clock. So they need to make big moves. This is a basketball game. They're jacking up threes. They're playing a full court defense. It's a risky move. And it didn't really happen here. They didn't really pay off. They weren't, hitting all their shots. The governor wasn't giving up the ball, so to speak. Like Joe said, she was playing a reserve offense. She was, playing a smart defense. So they weren't able to make up any grounds. They weren't able to force that gaffe. The other thing you say, though, about how many people are watching this. We have 6 million Democrats in New York. In 2018, 1.5 million voted in the primary. A tiny, tiny fraction of that watched the debate. Most of the people, when they are consuming information about this debate, it's through programs like this. It's through reading their newspaper. And the filter that we're giving it, at least the most of the media, is that wasn't much to see here, that you had a pretty moderate Democratic performance from Kathy Hochul. You had a sort of a center-right performance from Tom Suozzi and a far-left performance from Jumaane Williams. So there wasn't really any sort of big game changers there. So I think we have a game that's going to kind of just run out the clock on end of June with Kathy Hochul winning. I think it's just a question of how big of a margin is it.
And you'll see, the second debate, right? You'll see how much they come out a little more aggressive, trying to make up some of that ground, as Dave pointed out.
Right, that's on Thursday, this coming Thursday on ABC New York. I'm excited to see if that changes things at all. I mean, I think you're right, Dave. I think that this debate didn't have a lot of surprises. I think it was a little boring. I think Hochul gave the answers that we expected her to, except I will say on the Brian Benjamin question of, how did you not vet this person well enough that she got? I was surprised that she came out and was very honest about, well, that hurt me, that wasn't good. Rather than saying what they had started saying at the beginning, basically saying, well, we did everything we could at the time, and this is how it came out.
That answer wasn't working. And
right, exactly.
Let's test something out. Let's say, I'm human, you're human, we all make mistakes sometimes, and it's how we grow and mature from them. And I'm a leader who's, kind of new to the job, but I've already shown that I'm adaptable, because look at this new great shiny thing that I've tapped to replace Brian Benjamin, Antonio Delgado. So we got it right the second time around, if I'm continuing my Kathy Hochul impersonation.
Joe, looking forward, Dave brings up a good point. I think it is running out the clock for Kathy Hochul right now to win. Is there anything in the next few weeks that could change this race?
Well, I mean, barring some sort of scandal or something, I mean, they'll all be up on the air. They'll all be making their sort of final cases to Democrats. But yeah, I mean, again, not to be cliche, but it's all about the turnout, right? If turnout is really low, now you kind of have a wild card of will Hochul supporters come out versus Suozzi and Germani, who's more motivated there, and then she gets through that. Then probably I think most people would say that the bigger challenges for her is in November, and whether, as most expect, it'll be a good year for Republicans, and whether that could translate into a really close race for her.
Yeah, I guess, Dave, do you think that this debate changes anything in the general election at all? I don't think so, but in terms of the debates that we're having right now, is it possible that Hochul might try to pander to the left a little bit too much, and that could hurt her in the general during these debates as she's going into the primary?
I think what we're seeing here is that she's trying to lean into the issues that are popular with her base, but also popular in November. The things we're seeing her put ads on about are abortion and guns, things that have a majority support amongst the general election electorate. So they're very popular amongst her base, but they also work in November. So I think we're seeing her think about the short game as well as the long game with what her focus is.
Yeah, I mean, because they kept going back to crime. And every poll shows that's either number one or number two is right up there as a number one issue for voters. And when they would knock her on crime and not doing enough, she just comes back that we did do bail reform and we did do the gun control legislation. So she has a couple of things that she was able to achieve over this 6-month legislative session that she could point to that says, listen, we're trying to address it the best we can.
Can Suozzi or Germani do the same thing with anything at all, Joe, you think? Is there anything that they could do in the next few weeks? I asked you what could change in the next few weeks before, but can Suozzi or Germani do anything in the next few weeks to really boost their numbers without Hochul having some sort of gaffe or scandal?
Well, that's what they're counting on. They're counting on, in Suozzi's case, people's frustration with crime, with inflation, with the economy, all the issues where they might just want to have a new person in there. One of the things they talked about a little is trying to tie her to the Cuomo administration, whether it's on the response to COVID and the nursing home scandal. And I think you're going to see more of that, whether it's in a primary or in a general.
I don't know why neither candidate has, well, I guess I do know why. I don't know why neither candidate has really gone after her for being Cuomo's LG during the harassment scandal. She didn't really speak up about that during those months up until he resigned. I'm interested why they don't go after her for that, but that's a topic for another day. We're out of time. Dave Lombardo from WCNY's The Capitol Press Room, Joe Spector from Politico, thank you both so much.
Thanks, Dan.